I walked into HR with 47 signed witness statements, 3 months of documented harassment, and a recording that should have ended my tormentor's career. I walked out 30 minutes later with a termination letter that accused me of being the problem. And the worst part, my harasser got promoted this same day. I'd worked at Meridian Financial Solutions for 6 years. 6 years of early mornings, late nights, and consistently exceeding every metric they threw at me. I was a senior analyst in the compliance department, and I genuinely loved my job. The work was challenging, my team was solid, and I'd built a reputation as someone who could untangle the most complex regulatory nightmares. Then, Derek Holloway transferred in from our Chicago office. Derek was brought in as our new department supervisor after our previous manager retired. From day one, something felt off. He had this way of looking at people like he was calculating their net worth to him personally, but I told myself to give him a chance. New leadership always takes time to settle in. The problem started small. Derek would reassign my projects to his favorites without explanation. He'd schedule mandatory meetings during my lunch breaks, then mock me for eating at my desk afterward. He started calling me the diversity hire in front of colleagues, even though I'd been there 4 years before any diversity initiative existed. But it escalated fast. 3 weeks into his tenure, Derek started a running commentary about my appearance. My clothes were too cheap for client meetings. My haircut made me look unprofessional. He once told me in front of our entire team that I should smile more if I wanted to be taken seriously. I documented everything, every comment, every witness, every date and time. The breaking point came during a quarterly review meeting with 12 department heads present. Derek was presenting compliance metrics, and I noticed a significant error in his calculations. We were underreporting risk exposure by nearly $4 million. I raised my hand and politely pointed out the discrepancy. Derek's face went red. He slammed his folder on the conference table and said, and I quote, "This is exactly why I can't trust your kind with real numbers. You people always think you're smarter than everyone else." The room went silent. 12 department heads, 12 witnesses. The chief financial officer was sitting 3 seats away from me. Nobody said a word. After the meeting, my colleague Sarah Chen pulled me aside. Her hands were shaking. "Marcus, that was unacceptable. I'll sign whatever you need me to sign." Over the next week, 46 other employees came forward, 46 people who had witnessed Derek's behavior toward me or experienced similar treatment themselves. I compiled everything into a formal complaint: dates, times, specific quotes, witness names. I even had a recording from a team meeting where Derek made another racist comment recorded on my phone that I'd accidentally left on the table. I was thorough. I was professional. I followed every procedure in the employee handbook to the letter. I submitted my complaint to HR on a Tuesday morning. The HR director, Patricia Vance, thanked me for my courage and assured me that Meridian took these matters extremely seriously. She said I'd hear back within 5 business days. On Wednesday morning, I arrived at work to find Patricia Vance waiting at my desk. She wasn't alone. Beside her stood Gerald Torres, the VP of Human Resources, and a security guard I'd never seen before. "Marcus," Patricia said, her voice dripping with practiced sympathy, "we need to speak with you in conference room B." I followed them down the hall, my heart hammering against my ribs. Conference room B was the one with no windows, the one they used for terminations. Gerald didn't waste time. He slid a manila folder across the table and said, "Marcus, after a thorough investigation into your complaint, we've determined that your actions have created a hostile work environment for your colleagues." I actually laughed. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. "Your complaint," Gerald continued, "named 47 employees as witnesses without their explicit consent. Several have expressed feeling pressured and uncomfortable being involved in your personal vendetta against Mr. Holloway." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Personal vendetta? I have documentation of systematic harassment. I have a recording from a team meeting where Derek made another racist comment recorded on my phone that I'd accidentally left on the table. The recording, Patricia interrupted, was made without Mr. Holloway's consent in a state that requires 2-party notification. That's a violation of company policy and potentially illegal. But the witnesses... Several witnesses have recanted their statements. My blood ran cold. Recanted? Under what circumstances? Gerald's expression didn't change. That's confidential. I looked at the folder in front of me. Inside was a termination letter dated that same day. My severance package was outlined: 2 weeks' pay, immediate forfeiture of my pending bonus, and a non-disparagement agreement that would legally bar me from discussing the circumstances of my departure. If I signed, I'd get my 2 weeks. If I didn't, I'd be terminated for cause with nothing. Okay, I need to pause here because this is the moment where everything I thought I knew about workplace protections completely shattered. Subscribe if you think HR was covering for Derek from the very beginning. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever trusted HR only to have them turn on you? Because what I discovered next made me realize this wasn't just incompetence, this was coordinated, and I wasn't their first victim. I didn't sign. I asked for 24 hours to review the document with an attorney. Gerald's eye twitched almost imperceptibly, but they agreed. The security guard escorted me out of the building with my personal belongings in a cardboard box. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through everything, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. I'd followed every rule. I documented everything. I'd done exactly what every HR training video tells you to do. At 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah Chen. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. They told us if we didn't recant, we'd be investigated for participation in workplace conspiracy. 3 people were fired today. I have a family. I'm so sorry." Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The witnesses hadn't betrayed me. They'd been threatened. HR hadn't investigated my complaint. They'd investigated how to make it disappear. I spent the next week preparing. I contacted an employment attorney named Rebecca Morrison, who came highly recommended from an old college friend. When I showed her my documentation, she went quiet for a long time. "Marcus," she finally said, "do you know who Derek Holloway is?" I didn't understand the question. Derek Holloway is the nephew of Richard Holloway, the Richard Holloway who sits on Meridian's board of directors. Suddenly, Derek's transfer made sense. His immunity made sense. The entire coordinated assault against me made sense. They're not protecting Derek because he's innocent. They're protecting him because firing him would mean admitting a board member's family created a liability. And your documentation, if this went to court, you'd have enough for a systemic discrimination case. They needed to discredit you before you realized what you had. Rebecca helped me file complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and our state's Department of Labor. We documented everything: the original harassment, the retaliation, the witness intimidation, and the wrongful termination. But here's where the story takes a turn I never expected. 2 weeks after I filed with the EEOC, I received an anonymous email. No subject line, just an attachment. It was a spreadsheet, 23 names, 23 employees who had filed HR complaints against Derek Holloway or other members of the Holloway family over the past 4 years at various Meridian offices. Every single one had been terminated within 60 days of their complaint. Every single one had signed non-disparagement agreements. I wasn't the first. I was just the first one who didn't sign. I forwarded the spreadsheet to Rebecca immediately. She contacted 4 of the former employees. 3 agreed to speak with us off the record. Their stories were almost identical to mine: documented harassment, witnessed intimidation, manufactured justifications for termination. One woman, a former project manager named Denise Williams, had reported Derek for sexual harassment at the Chicago office. HR told her they'd found no evidence of misconduct. 2 weeks later, she was fired for performance issues, despite having received a promotion just 3 months earlier. With their testimony and my documentation, Rebecca filed an expanded complaint alleging a pattern of systematic retaliation and discrimination. Meridian's legal team responded within 48 hours. They wanted to settle. Their first offer was insulting: 6-month salary and a mutual non-disparagement agreement. Rebecca rejected it without even consulting me. Their second offer came a week later: 2 years salary, full benefits continuation, and expungement of my termination from company records. I almost took it. I was exhausted. I was running through my savings. My reputation in the industry had been quietly destroyed by references from Meridian that I later learned were filled with coded warnings about my difficult personality. But then I got another anonymous email. This time, it was a screenshot of an internal memo dated 2 days after my termination. The subject line read, "Holloway situation, contained." The memo discussed my case specifically. It outlined the successful neutralization of my complaint and recommended Derek Holloway for a regional director position as a gesture of institutional confidence. They hadn't just destroyed my career, they'd rewarded my harasser for surviving my complaint. I showed Rebecca the memo. She smiled for the first time since we'd met. "Marcus, do you know what this is? This is evidence of premeditation. They didn't investigate and find you at fault. They decided to eliminate you and worked backward to justify it." We rejected the settlement and prepared for litigation. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Meridian's lawyers tried everything. They attacked my credibility. They claimed I was a disgruntled employee with an axe to grind. They even tried to argue that the anonymous memos weren't authentic. But they couldn't explain away the pattern. 23 employees, 4 years, 1 family. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They found in my favor on all counts: wrongful termination, retaliation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The damages totaled $1.8 million. But more importantly, the verdict was public. Every news outlet in the region covered it. Meridian stock dropped 11% the following week. Derek Holloway was quietly terminated 2 days after the verdict. No promotion, no severance, just gone. Patricia Vance resigned a month later. Gerald Torres was demoted to a regional compliance role where he couldn't touch another HR complaint. And the 22 other employees who had been silenced, Rebecca reached out to all of them. 14 agreed to join a class action lawsuit that's still pending. Last month, I started a new job at a company where the CEO personally asked about my experience during the final interview. Not to judge me, to understand what they needed to prevent in their own organization. I still get messages from people who saw the trial coverage. They share their own stories, their own HR nightmares, their own moments of realizing that the department designed to protect them was actually protecting everyone else. HR is not your friend. They never were. Their job is to protect the company, and sometimes you are what the company needs protection from, not because you did anything wrong, but because you had the audacity to tell the truth.
Thank you so much for sticking with me through this story. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who are supposed to help you, I see you. Hit that like button if this resonated and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about workplace injustice and the people who fight back. And if you have your own HR nightmare story, drop it in the comments or send it to us directly. Your story might be the next one we feature. Stay strong out there.